All right, let's get into something really fascinating today. We're going to look at the Quran, but maybe in a way you haven't before. Not just as a sacred text, but as this incredible masterpiece of numerical design. The whole idea is that numbers themselves could be a kind of hidden language, a divine communication woven right into the fabric of the text. So, where do we even begin? Well, the mystery really kicks off with letters like these: Aleph, Lam, Mim. You'll find them at the very beginning of 29 different chapters, or surahs, in the Quran. And the thing is, they just appear. There's no obvious meaning, and they've been a source of debate for scholars for, well, centuries. And that brings us to the core question here, the real enigma. Are these just random letters, or could they be something more? The whole theory we're digging into today suggests they're not random at all. Instead, it proposes they're actually keys to unlocking a much deeper numerical meaning that's hidden right below the surface. Okay, so if we're going to unpack this theory, we've got to start with the basics. First, what are these letters called? And second, what's the tool being used to supposedly crack their code? These letters have a name. They're called the muqatta'at, and like I said, scholars have debated their purpose forever. But the perspective we're looking at today, it argues that they're not just a mystery to be solved, but a fundamental part of a really deliberate and intricate system. So if these letters are part of a system, how do we understand it? What's the key to this code? Well, this theory doesn't just leave us hanging. It points to a really ancient system, basically a way to translate letters into the universal language of numbers. And that system is called the abjad system. It's actually pretty straightforward. Every single letter in the Arabic alphabet gets its own numerical value. So, going back to our example, Aleph, Lam, Mim stops being just 3 letters. It becomes a math problem. 1 plus 30 plus 40, which equals 71. You see? This system is the lens, the tool for this entire analysis. All right, so now that we have our tool, let's zoom out a bit. Let's see how this numerical lens isn't just applied to a few letters, but to the entire grand architecture of the Quran itself. And we're going to start with the most basic structure. So the Quran has exactly 114 chapters, or surahs. Simple fact. But for this analysis, that number, 114, is everything. It's our foundation, the total scope of the book we're looking at. And check this out. Right away, the analysis points to what it sees as a kind of perfect symmetry. Because what's half of 114? It's 57. Exactly 57. This suggests the whole book can be split perfectly down the middle. So you've got this perfect split, 57 chapters in the first half, 57 in the second. The argument here is that this isn't a coincidence. This is the first big clue, evidence of an intentional, balanced, and symmetrical design woven right into the blueprint of the text. Okay, so we have this foundational balance, but the theory goes deeper. It starts to zoom in on specific numbers that it claims aren't just about structure. No, these numbers are symbolic. They represent huge divine concepts like perfection and creation. Let's take the number 7, for example. In Islamic tradition, 7 is a big deal. It's often linked with completeness, the 7 heavens, that kind of thing. So when you see a sequence like 777777, it's interpreted as taking that idea and just amplifying it. It becomes this incredibly powerful symbol of divine perfection and absolute order. And then you get a number like 729. Now, this is where it gets really interesting from a mathematical perspective. What makes 729 so special? Well, you can get to it in a bunch of ways. It's 3 to the 6th power. It's also 9 cubed. And it's 27 squared. This, according to the theory, points to these big ideas of cycles, balance, and this deep, almost web-like interconnectedness of all of creation. Okay, this is where it all starts to come together. The theory now tries to build a bridge, to connect all these abstract numbers to something deeply human and spiritual. It's about taking these mathematical patterns and linking them to the absolute center of a person's faith. And to do that, it puts a spotlight on one number in particular: 36. The argument being made is that 36 isn't just another number in the pattern. It's a symbol, a numerical stand-in for the spiritual core of a person, the heart. So where does this connection come from? Well, it's grounded in a very well-known hadith, a teaching from the Prophet that talks about how central the heart is. If the heart is sound, the whole body is sound.
And the argument here is that the number 36 is a kind of mathematical mirror to that spiritual reality.
So we've got all these different pieces on the table, right? We have the mysterious letters, the structural midpoint of the book, these really symbolic numbers. The big question, the crucial point, is how do they all connect? How do you weave them together into one single cohesive system? Well, the method used here is something called the digital root. It's actually a pretty cool concept. It's just a way of boiling any number down to its single-digit essence. Let me show you. Take 237, a number linked to the Muqatta odds. You just add the digits. 2 plus 3 plus 7 is 12. That's still 2 digits, so you do it again. 1 plus 2 is 3. Now let's try 57, the Quran's midpoint. 5 plus 7 is 12. And again, 1 plus 2 is 3. You see, both of these really important but different numbers boil down to this same root, 3. This is presented as evidence of a shared, underlying meaning of unity. And that, right there, is really the climax of the entire argument. It's the idea that all these things, the mysterious letters, the balanced structure, the symbolic numbers, they aren't just separate, interesting little facts. They're all interconnected pieces of what's presented as a deliberate, divine harmony. So what's the big takeaway here? It's really about this unique lens, this different way of looking at a sacred text. Now, it's important to know this kind of numerical analysis is pretty far outside of mainstream scholarship, which has focused more on language and history for centuries. But as a thought experiment, it leaves us with a really provocative question to think about. Are all these numerical patterns just incredible coincidences? Or could they truly be a hidden language, a form of divine communication?